Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teach a Kid to Read, the podcast about caring for children in the area of literacy, where we believe that there's no such thing as an illiterate child. There's only children who haven't found an adult who cares enough to teach them to read yet. And we exist to release 1 million volunteers, hopefully, into under-resourced classrooms to transform a generation of kids. And my name's Tony, and I'm here with Jeff Martin, who is the director of the Children's Literacy Project. He is also the executive producer of an exciting new film that is the backdrop of Teach a Kid to Read, a film called Sentenced, a documentary on illiteracy and how it impacts adults so that we can understand the need to teach children. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Glad to be at the show, of course. This is great.
So, Jeff, you've produced, you're the brain behind this new documentary called Sentenced, and we should probably just let the audience know that I was also the writer on the film. So when we talk about it, it's really talking about something we both love an awful lot. And so there may be times that Jeff tosses the ball back to me a little bit, but kind of talk through the genesis of Sentenced, the documentary on illiteracy and how it came about. Can you tell us kind of the genesis story?
Sure. Well, I spent about a decade active in the cause of activating volunteerism into public schools, so most at-risk public schools around the country. I'm involved in an organization that we made a film. That film got disseminated throughout the country through various partners.
And this is a different film. This is not Sentenced.
Yes. Yeah, it's a different film. It was a decade over. I think we finished it in 2010, and we watched what happened when a film on an important topic, hits the culture the right way.
Right.
And during that time, we spent a lot of time in at-risk inner city schools and schools around the country that were challenged, and discovered that, Title I schools aren't only in the hills of Appalachia and the inner city of Chicago. Title I schools are a few miles from my house, and I live in one of the most prestigious towns in Oregon, and I can drive 8 minutes and be at a Title I school. So there's a lot of need out there, and we discovered that kids in school aren't learning to read, and we literally pivoted to the cause of literacy. And we haven't done anything in the last few years that didn't start with a feature documentary film. So I guess as filmmakers, we see the story, but as responsible citizens, we see that you don't just make a film and leave the project hanging. So we dive in and we create our nonprofit, and we focus, and we just try to end up having a huge impact with the films that we make. And we adopted literacy when we saw that it wasn't being addressed.
Jeff, let me ask you sort of a cynical question. I think a lot of people, maybe a lot of people listening to our podcast today, they see films, documentary films, as vanity projects. They're people spend a lot of money to go film things they want to film, and in the end, yeah, there's entertainment value to it, but as far as real transformation, it doesn't really happen. How would you respond to that in regards to your filmmaking?
Well, I'm interested in kind of what I would call kingdom work and justice. And I don't have I mean, I would love to do a documentary on Buddy Holly if somebody'd ask me to, but what's put in front of me, what's been given to me, are ideas that are transformative. And in a way, we kind of do sociological studies of situations. And I have a background in sociology, and I had a keen interest in it in college, and it just became natural for me to gravitate towards making a difference. And that's what we do.
And two of your previous films made it to the White House and actually affected policy, and you've actually put volunteers into places where they were needed, and you've actually seen schools change. It's not just a vanity project; it actually has impact.
I had a friend one time tell me that my problem was that you really need to make films that make a difference and where you can measure the success. And he described how, people show my film and they raise like $5,000 when they show my film. And that's, exciting. And I think that that's great. But I went well, we had something like 10 to 20,000 churches adopt public schools with one of our films. And the largest restoration project in the history of the world down on the Klamath River is starting in 2023 as a result of the Obama administration seeing our film. So I love doing impact work. And I tell you, I'm the worst film distributor in the world when it comes to being successful, in that broad, exciting Academy Award way. But we've
Right.
we've had a lot of luck having an impact with our films. I don't
That's
know.
great.
That's what we were given. So that's what we do.
Your new film, Sentenced, is on the issue of literacy. And again, you've touched on several topics over your career as a filmmaker and as a nonprofit worker, a do-gooder in the world. I'm just going to read this. The Sentenced documentary is a vulnerable and immersive exploration on the epidemic of childhood illiteracy. A braided series of character-driven stories from the point of view of ethnically diverse adults and their families who have never learned to read. A forceful yet tender tale of how illiteracy fuels the cycles of generational poverty.
Yeah.
How did you come to fall in love with this issue, or this to become your passion?
Well, it's pretty simple. When I was out there doing the work in what became known as church school partnerships, where we were showing churches how to enter into the public space in ways that were welcome and conformed with church and state and were appropriate ways to partner and serve into public schools. I was invited to Memphis, where we made a small film, and I met these wonderful principals and pastors and educators and activists who were coming together in their city around the cause of literacy. And I kind of knew we had run our course in this faith school partnership space. Some people were doing it really well. They were surpassing us in their ability to help others get started. And to this day, I send people to them routinely who call us and need and want support or want ideas. And I just say, you need to work with School Connect in Phoenix. They're the best. And we pivoted. We saw literacy, and in fairness to our audience, I talked to you about it. We just agreed that this is the next thing for us, is
right.
to do literacy. And in that Memphis film, I had people in Fort Worth, Texas, hug me after watching a short. I've never anybody watch a short film and hug me. And this guy hugged me and said, "Thank you for what you're doing." And to me, it was just a goosebump moment where I knew, I'm doing literacy. I'm getting old. I'm going to do something that really is going to have a huge impact on a lot of people. And we're going to impact literacy in our country. And we're discovering right now what kind of impact that might be now that we have a finished film that we can show and we can use.
The documentary is called Sentenced. And Jeff, I understand you've got a treat for us. You're going to give us a sneak peek of the teaser for the film. This is an unreleased film at this point, but we're going to go ahead and show that right now. If you're listening to a podcast, you can go to sentencedfilm.com, and there you can see, as of today, you can see the teaser for the film, but we're going to watch it here. A quick sneak peek of the film Sentenced.
I don't know what skill. I really don't know what it says.
My wife texts me, "What's I?" That is a I with the little dash thing. I don't know how to say that.
Kindergarten, first, second, it begins there. And slowly we begin to lose you.
The stakes are high. The stakes is life and death.
You can't teach yourself how to read if you don't know how to read.
Spent a total of 9 years in prison.
He has a knife, and then we didn't go to school.
I can't afford a dentist.
I was devastated. Don't know how to spell it, but yeah.
I only graduated from the 6th grade. He's going through the same issues like me. I hope and I pray to God he's better than me.
She's falling behind in her reading. She had to repeat the first grade for the second time.
Because my teacher gave me a hard work that I don't know.
How can I make a difference in my community? How can I keep them out of prison? How can I break this generational poverty?
It's easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
We have a chance to actually change a broken system.
Okay. Well, I've seen it a dozen times and I got chills again.
Me too.
How did it affect you, Jeff?
Well, it's such a long journey to make a documentary film. This is my fourth, and I've tried to do 5 others, and everything about it starts with a having an idea, talking to your next closest person, and starting a life, what becomes a life journey that is really no different than going to college. I mean, it's not like getting your master's. It's like going to college. You enter in sort of dumb. You 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 start, and then you discover it, and then you go, oh my gosh, we've got to do something different. We've got to meet a new person. We've got to find money. Oh my gosh, COVID has got to shut us down. So by the time you're done, you're exhausted. You're glad to be done, and you kind of forget the importance of your work until you start watching audiences respond and things happen. Like, we didn't know if 4 dams on the Klamath River were going to come down when we finished the film, but then
And that film was called
A River Between Us.
A River Between Us. People want to see that one.
Yeah. And we didn't know that. We literally made the film Undivided, not knowing who we were going to show it to ever.
Right.
And because of the experience of Undivided, not necessarily the other film, we kind of knew we had a starting point, but we entered into the space of literacy that is a giant industry, and we didn't know if they will even like this film or embrace this film.
A giant industry that has resulted in one in 5 American adults cannot read well enough to get a job.
Right. And they would never make a film. Bless their hearts. I love, they're my friends.
Yeah,
I
they're
admire
great.
them immensely. I got a woman in Memphis who calls me her BFF, who we've actually never shaken hands, because I admire her so much, but she would never make a film where she called out her industry. And somebody needs to tell America that 1 in 5 Americans don't read well enough to get a job, that there are 43 million Americans that can't read. And we don't need to feel shame. We need to feel resolve and go like, okay, we can go all around the world and write checks during COVID. We can do all this stuff, and we can't teach our kids to read.
Right.
What?
And it's not that everyone's not trying. Like, we are big supporters of the entire industry and what they're trying to do. And it's like you told me when you first presented this project, you said, Tony, I'm a filmmaker, and this is the thing that I can do. This is my superpower that I can bring to this issue. And hopefully everyone will be able to use, my superpower, or I can use it for the good of everyone. And so my understanding is your goal long-term is to give this film away, in the sense of make sure everyone uses it who can use it.
Yeah. We presented the film at a film festival in Indianapolis. And one of the weirdest questions was this woman said to me, why did you do this? Why did you make this film? And I said to her, well, I'm a believer person. I'm a faith person. And a friend said to me one time, give to what is given to you. And this idea was given to me. And so I gave to it. And as Tony said, we're a filmmaker. We're filmmakers. And that's how we start. And so we decided to find out whether we could raise the money and find out whether there was enough of a story, and could we assemble a team. And in the end, we made the film as a gift to the cause of literacy, I think if you watch the film, you'll see nothing but empathy for public school teachers. They are given an impossible task. They cannot be held responsible. For one of the persons I raised money from gave $500 to the film reluctantly and said, "Why aren't teachers teaching the kids to read?" I said, "Well, watch the movie. You will figure out. You will figure that out very quickly. Why teachers can't be held responsible for this challenge." And so I guess we just made the film because it was put on our hearts, and we're filmmakers, and we're impact filmmakers. We're not glamorous documentarians. We're impact filmmakers, justice filmmakers. So we did it.
Before we wrap up, I have a couple more questions. One is what's your hope for the film as far as like it's done now. It hasn't been released, so people can see the teaser. They can't see the film itself. What's your hope over the next year? And give us a hopeful version of that. Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, the as I've said it, and I said at a small event recently, the documentary films find their audience. And we're in the process right now of helping that film find its audience. As I said earlier, we didn't know if people in the literacy world would embrace this film because we know they would never make it. They would never spend $500,000 and plus all the free. That was towards the production. We have lots of unpaid support for the film. So let's say $1 million. They'd never spend $1 million making a film, and they'd never spend 5 years doing it and allowing themselves to do it like filmmakers. And so, but in the end, we didn't know whether they'd embrace the film. And we have now had, in really just this week, it's the second week of February, and just this week, we've had two very significant literacy organizations, highly networked, go, "Oh my gosh, you've captured the story." So we only learned this week, we've been doing the project for 5 years, and we only learned this week that we've made a film that we can anticipate being embraced by the literacy movement. And that's amazing. So to start with, we're helping the film find its audience. Ultimately, we would love to have broad streaming distribution. I'm sure we will. All the other films have. But you don't start there. You start by building the rumble underneath the volcano, and we're in the rumble stage right now. We're going to New York to another festival in a month, where a lot of people are coming.
Justice Film Festival. If you're in New York City area,
March 3rd, March 2nd,
March 2nd,
down on Bleecker Street. We'll help you find that. Reach out to us. And so that's my hope, is that the film catches fire, and that in the end, we're back at the White House going, this needs to change. Not only do those 4 dams need to come down, and not only is it okay for churches to partner in public schools, but America should not be trailing the world in early childhood literacy. Every kid in this country should be reading by the time they're in 4th grade, and it's ridiculous that they are not.
It's great. And then you kind of got into it there a little bit. Could you just expand a little bit on the impact you hope, or what do you hope the film catalyzes?
Yeah, well, I think the public doesn't get it to start with. I think the public has heard about literacy, and I literally know that there are products out there. You can type in the word like literacy products, and it'll be like ABCs for homeschool kids, and little books and products you can buy, and literacy. And I even talked to somebody at a major publisher one time, and they said, "Well, our literacy program is this. We have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 books, and we provide those to families so they can teach their kid to read." Well, guess what? Those parents would teach their kids to read if all they had was wet sand and a finger. They would spell out the ABCs and teach their kids the sounds. Those families do not have literacy problem. The literacy problem coexists with poverty and typically generational poverty. So families who don't know how to read now are raising kids that won't know how to read later. And so we need to intervene in the lives of those families and give them the support they need, and give their teachers who try to teach those children the support. It's cross-cultural, it's rural, it's urban, it's all races, it's all genders, it's little kids. And the easiest thing you can do is, if you can't figure out what else to do, volunteer to be a reading buddy somewhere and teach a kid to read website. which is teachakidtoread.com, will direct you to just the easiest, closest thing you can do. And that's our goal, is to activate the public to help and to change the way America sees the problem.
From your mouth to the country's ears, I hope, Jeff. And I just wish good things for you, and that it does have that impact. Before we go, anything you'd like to say you haven't had a chance to say?
No, I would. Yeah, I mean, no. And then I talk. The filmmakers deserve the credit. I mean, I would not have made a film like Sentenced. I wrote and directed the last documentary we did, and it was full of really smart people, and we proved that those smart people were smart by showing pictures of what they were talking about, and we made them all look good. And it was a very safe film because everybody else's voice was the important voice. This film is a deep dive into generational poverty. And you saw it in the trailer. You met the characters in the trailer. Well, we lived with those people for months. And the filmmakers convinced us that it was not a film where we ought to let the experts talk. And there's nothing, I'm not mad at the experts, but the experts are having a hard time changing the country. So let the people themselves tell their own story. And that's what Sentence is about. And I credit Mark Allen Johnson and Connor Martin, who's my son, and the writers, Tony and Jim, who supported those guys the whole way to make sure it was a smart, well put together film that could reach the most people. And so while I get to sit in the boss's seat and pretend it's about me, it's not. There's wonderful work done by other people. And there's going to be a lot more people that are going to make it happen. Our friends in New York City, our friends in Washington, D.C., our friends in Seattle, Memphis, Indianapolis, just as a start. The film's not even released. Only a few people have seen it. And these people are responding, and their work will end up being the work. So
that's Jeff Martin with the Children's Literacy Project and also the Sentence Film Project. Check out at sentencefilm.com. Go to teachakidtoread.com and start to learn how you can impact a kid in your neighborhood. The world has changed one person at a time, one relationship at a time. Harvard study said the most transformational thing that could happen in the life of a child is one healthy, caring adult to enter their life and to speak hope into them. And so that's what Jeff's about, and that's what this is about. Remember, there's no such thing as illiterate children. There's only kids who haven't met an adult who cares enough to help them read. So this is Teach a Kid to Read, and have a wonderful day.
Teach a child to read. Give a child a chance. It's as simple as that.